So this morning, my talk is entitled, Is it End Times or a New Earth? Is it end times or a new earth? There was a talk that Ram Dass gave years ago where he said, and I'm paraphrasing, I've been asked many times if this is the Aquarian age and everything's just beginning, or this is Armageddon and we're in the end times. And I have to admit, I don't know. I don't know. But whatever time we're in, my work is the same. And that is to quiet my mind, open my heart, and relieve suffering where I find it. Isn't that beautiful advice? No matter what is happening with this world, my work is to quiet my mind, open my heart, and relieve suffering in myself and in those around me. It's such a wise instruction, because we're in this realm of change, right? Change is the only constant. And if we quiet our mind and open our heart and relieve suffering, then life is deeply meaningful. I sometimes imagine what the forgotten instructions in the pep talk might have been that we got before we came here. I like to imagine what that pep talk was like that we got from the source of love itself when we were leaving the formless realm and we were entering this body to start our life. So I imagine that pep talk went something like this. You are a beloved eternal being. You are ever one with love, a brilliant light in the constellation of the great life. Who you are cannot die, but you will enter form and leave it many times. The purpose of this life you're about to live is to learn and grow. It's a journey of self-discovery. You will have talents, and you will find ways to use them as you feel your destiny unfolding. You'll have obstacles and challenges to overcome, and that will grow your resiliency and support you in fulfilling your destiny. You'll have intuition, divine guidance, but you'll need to listen often. Your life purpose will involve serving others and making a positive difference. So, beloved one, remember the truth of who you are. Embrace change and do not fear or despair. Do not let fear or despair take hold. Find joy and meaning, cultivate gratitude, and savor the journey. You will return home to infinite love itself. The infinite being God is will become more from the life you lived. From the life you lived and all that you learned. Don't worry about the world. Don't worry about the world. It's a realm of polarity. It's always going to be about an equal amount light and dark. It's Earth school. It's a learning ground. Just remember, light your one candle and shine that light. That is enough. Yeah, I wrote that. Thank you. I know. It's like, what does that divine love say to me? That's what that divine love says to me over and over again. And somewhere in our wisdom body, we know that everything here is change. We know that the nature of this realm is impermanence, and we know there's great wisdom in cultivating non-attachment. But that doesn't mean we don't care, and it doesn't mean we don't do our best to contribute to the common good of this world, right? We have to hold on lightly, though, to things of this world, right? We have to learn to hold on lightly. The master spiritual teachers in my life, and I know in your life, they all remind us, become a master of impermanence. Become skilled at embracing impermanence with a peaceful heart. Stay in touch with this world and put love into action every day. Be an activist. What's an activist? What's a divine activist? You put love into action every day. But remember that you're in this world, not of it. that who you are, the essence of your being, is in this world, not of it. Your eternal being and love itself, and you will just inhabit this particular form for a blink in time, just for a blink in time. So if we look around and we're honest, at least to me, it feels like there's a lot of destruction. Feels like there's a lot of destruction in our government, in our environment, in our world order, and it can feel like a lot is ending. You know, it can feel like end times in the way the world was, right? Like we have a beautiful old growth forest and it burns down, or environmental regulations are loosened and then it gets clear cut, right, for timber. And so we grieve for the land, we grieve for the creatures, for the earth, for ourselves, for our loss. And because we're about practical spirituality, we put love into action to do what we can to protect the forest, to save the environment. I feel immense passion for the environment and protecting it. And so what I'm finding is that every day we have to find that edge where we balance changing what we can and finding peace with what we can't. Anybody else working on that? That serenity prayer, that's a wise prayer, right? And it's a fluid edge. It's something we figure out every day. It's fluid, right? And part of the work is finding peace with what we can't change and embracing impermanence and becoming more able to bear inevitable loss and change and letting ourselves grieve when grief comes, right? But it is to get acquainted with what is eternal in us and grow acceptance and equanimity of what will come and go and form. There's a beautiful poem by Rumi I found years ago called Apocalypse and Glory. And it speaks to this mystery of the creator that's creating form and duality out of itself and then eventually bringing all that back into its formless being. So let me share the words of Rumi. He says it so well. Everything you see has its roots in the unseen world. The forms may change, yet the essence remains the same. Every wonderful sight will vanish. Every sweet word will fade. But do not be disheartened. The source they come from is eternal, growing, branching out, giving new life and joy. Why do you weep? The source is within you, and this whole world is springing up from it. The source is full, and its waters are ever flowing. Do not grieve, drink your fill. Don't think it will ever run dry. This is an endless ocean. This is an endless ocean. It's a relief to be reminded of the wider truth. I know the truth, but I have to remind myself. I have to remember again and again and again. It's so easy to be sleepy and go back to sleep and forget the deepest truth that we know at the core of our being. I had a series of samadhi experiences, and in one of them I saw that I am creates worlds with a blink of an eye. That I am brings worlds into being like that. Worlds into being, worlds into being, worlds into being, worlds into being. That's the truth. That's the infinite creative energy, omnipotence, omnipresence of that which we call the Creator. So it doesn't mean that we gloss over the grief of loss. You know, I think most of us here are old enough to have experienced deep grief. And, you know, the loss of someone we love deeply. You know, it's impossible not to feel attachments. To me, it's impossible not to feel attachments to your mom. I don't know how you can, I don't know what. I mean, Amma recently lost her mom. Her mother died. And she did this incredible, beautiful ritual for her mother's body. It was so touching. You could really feel her love. But of course, what helps us is is remembering you have to go beyond the mind to know the eternal beingness. You have to get still and go beyond the mind to realize what Rumi said when he said the eternal source they come from is ever branching out and giving new life. And that all forms will meet and dance again in so many forms. I love the idea of that. I love the thought of that. You know, I think of my mom and I know I'll see her again. One of the things that grieving my mom did for me was it stretched me beyond the seeming separation between form and formless. It stretched me beyond that. I had to go beyond that. I had to go so deep into the stillness and the depths of my being where I know the truth. I am the truth. And I'm not separate. I'm not separate from her. And that was a powerful vehicle of alchemy, you know, grief. It's such a vehicle of alchemy. It makes the heart so tender and so soft and open. It grows our compassion beautifully. So there's a Hindu teaching. There's an aspect in Hinduism of the divine, the goddess Kali, who is fierce. She offers a kind of fierce grace. She's pictured wearing a necklace of skulls. Have you all seen Kali? She's often black. And she is a destroyer, but not a destroyer of good. She's a destroyer of illusion. She's a destroyer of limitation. She's a destroyer of the ego. It can sound scary. Andrew Harvey puts it this way. He says, the destruction of every illusion does not end in horror, paralysis, and despair. It ends in the open expanse of a love beyond reason, an agenda which reveals itself shining in every flower and every grain of sand and radiating from every face. The shattering of every false hope does not end in hopelessness and the desire to die. It ends in awe at the majesty of the force and presence and omnipotence of the divine. So I want to rest in that awe at the majesty. I want to rest in that awe. Go ahead and destroy my illusions. Destroy this ego. Destroy the limitations so that I can rest in this awe of the majesty of the force and presence of the divine that I am. Kali, this so-called killer goddess, she's the rebirther. She destroys attachments, illusion, and she destroys being lost in the dream here. And I think that's necessary. And sometimes I think we don't want to be waken up from the dream here, right? It's like, no, I'm really sound asleep. Don't wake me, right? But she does so out of infinite compassion. It's infinite compassion to give us the incomprehensible and glorious miracle of her enlightened consciousness, of her liberated, blissful consciousness. So this kind of destruction of our false ideas, this destruction of the causes of suffering, is actually profound love. It's love that sets us free from suffering. You know, I felt so much freer after I lost all my possessions in the campfire. You know, after I got over the shock and the grief, I felt so much freer when I lost everything. And it's so funny. I mean, I've been living I was in a tiny home in Shasta, then a studio for 6 years now. Oh yeah, at least 6 years. I've just been living in the tiniest space with very, very little. I haven't accumulated much. I'm about to move into 700 square feet. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. I'm going to buy 2 chairs. But I've been liberated. I really don't feel like I'm ever going to be attached to stuff anymore. You know, I just feel like I've been set free from that, and it's a real freedom. I'm grateful for it. Yeah, Christy lost her house in the fire, and she knows what I'm talking about. So we have to be resilient. We're in a time right now that I think asks us to be resilient and more comfortable with the unknown and the unpredictable. And it's a stretch because we're creatures of habit. We're creatures, we have this animal body, and we like We like to be comfortable. We like to know what to expect. We don't like a lot of change, you know. But we are incredibly adaptable. We really are. And we can make friends with impermanence, and that's really the key. In Hinduism, they also have a trinity that they describe as the three aspects of God, and that is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the sustainer, and Shiva is the destroyer. And all three are seen as holy. So the aspect that creates and sustains and destroys or causes dissolution, that's a natural part of life in form. And it's interesting because in the book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 13, we read, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. So the I am, which is the only name God uses for itself in the Bible, is saying, I am the beginning and the end. I am creation and destruction. Another poem by Rumi says it another way. One day in your wine shop, I drank a little wine and threw off the robe of my body. And I knew, drunk on you, that the world is harmony. Creation, destruction, I am dancing for them both. Wow. I mean, you walk in the park and you see all the trees down, right? All the snow that broke all those branches. And I have a tendency to go, oh, look at those buds that aren't going to bloom, you know? And I feel sad for the buds, the rhododendrons buds that aren't going to bloom. But I also see in nature a natural creation, sustaining, and destruction that happens, right? So the Hindu and Buddhist teachings on impermanence are so helpful to imbibe, right? And especially right now, because it feels like change is going from 20 miles an hour to 150. You wake up and wonder what's going to happen today. Anybody else living like that? I'm afraid to check. And we have prophecies, right? We have John's writing of Revelation. We have the Hopi prophecies. We have the description of the Kali Yuga. And it's all pointing to an intense period of destruction of the old and rebirth of the new. I'll talk about that Hopi prophecy because that's really interesting another time. And, you know, what's happening in our country? You know, it feels like a daily destruction of government institutions, and there's climate change, there's AI, everybody's building up their defense, you know, in their countries. So it can seem like end times. But interestingly, the ancient Hindu texts say that the Kali Yuga is the best age to live in. For two reasons, and let me give them to you. The first reason, this is the best time, the best age to live in, is that the shattering of all illusions can, if you let it, reveal reality in all its terrible and amazing splendor and liberate you finally. Yeah. And the second one is in the Kali Yuga, the grace pouring down to help humans endure is greater and more resplendent than in any other age. I love that. I feel like the miracle of grace is there. We have to call it forth. We've got to call it into being. We need to mean it with the depths of our heart and soul. Pray with everything we've got and call on that miracle of grace. There was a song I wrote years ago called Love Is, and the chorus goes, you can remember the song. I wrote it a long time ago. Let me live my life with a heart that's open wide enough to embrace everything that comes. Let me live my life for the chance to love just one more day and to express what's inside and be willing to die to be born in the arms of love. Yeah, and I think that's what we're doing. I just think I think evolution is kind of a dying to our old self every day. I mean, when it starts to speed up, it can feel like that. But it's really, you know, about letting love have you and transform you and change you. And, you know, giving yourself to love might mean that you're doing things from love you've never done before in your whole life, right? And that you're sort of amazed at what love is asking of you and what is pouring through you, right? Eckhart Tolle speaks to this. He says, when faced with a radical crisis, when the old way of being in the world, of interacting with each other and with the realm of nature doesn't work anymore, when survival's threatened by seemingly insurmountable problems, an individual life form or a species will either die or become extinct or rise above the limitations of its condition through an evolutionary leap. And Jean's going to tell us all about that next Sunday. She's going to help us in this evolutionary leap, because I say, let's choose that. I like that reality. And that happens through our keeping our faith and hope alive, and developing this ability to embrace impermanence and developing equanimity through staying present. You know, when you're in bed and you can't sleep, ask yourself, is anything wrong with this moment right now? No, you're comfortable in a lovely bed. You've had enough to eat. You're in a safe space. You're loved. Everything's okay. So we stay present and we do our work, our transformation of ourselves. And we put our passion for justice and for the common good into action, right? Life is not a spectator sport. There's a beautiful psalm that says, I lift up my eyes towards the mountains. From where will my help come? My help is from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He will never let your foot slip, nor will your guardian become drowsy. I love that. When it feels dark, we have to spiritually look up. You know, we have to rise above. You know, and remember the nature of life in this world of form. It's like riding a wave, right? Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But there's this deep, 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 deep down below the ocean waves that's always calm, that's always peace. That is this eternal calm equanimity. We have to spend time there. We have to rest there, right? So when if you feel like you're getting lost in the dream here, dive deeper into the peace of your being. And it's okay if you lose that peace a million times. Just return to love, return to peace again and again. Matthew Fox writes that the dark night of humanity, he writes about the dark night of humanity, and he says that absence or near absence of hope tempts us, yet despair is not a worthy option. He says, you'll be tempted to flee, for the dark night is an uncomfortable place to find oneself. Flight may take many forms, including addictions, denials, cover-up passivity, couch potato-itis, and a let others fix it mentality. But we all need each other to be on board, to each do our own work on a daily basis, to transform negativity, doubt, despair, and exhaustion, and keep our energy and vibration up, right? Not a time to give up or be lazy. We came to be warriors of light, and we cannot shrink when it gets hard, when it feels like we're on the battlefield. That's all Matthew Fox. And he writes that courage is required to stick around at such a time, as the Sufi mystic Hafiz put it, when God turns us upside down to shake all the nonsense out. I think that's what's happening. So I ask you to hold a vision with me that while all the shaking of the nonsense is being shaked out, that this drama that we're in, Earth School, has a happy conclusion, where humanity chooses to turn away from greed and from ignorance and from separation, and wakes up to our interdependence and embraces our divine inheritance collectively. In Revelation, quoting Revelation a lot today, John writes about the demise of the Roman Empire. He gives a powerful indictment about the corrupt form of government in his time, which was a domination system focused on power and wealth and violence and corruption and selfishness. And it feels relevant. And The comforting end of the book of Revelation is the idea of a new Jerusalem, right? Where all these afflictions of humankind are gone. And the words are, grief, pain, and death are no more. I love this most beautiful of statements. God will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. Sounds like a vision of humanity awake to its Christ nature. And truly living, as we sing in that song from John Lennon, living as one. So in closing, please join me in keeping hope alive. Join me in keeping hope alive. Let's lift each other up. Let's meet here every Sunday and keep hope alive and lift each other up. And hold that vision of the possibility of a new earth being born. You know, birth is messy. Birth can be really painful and messy. But let's each do our part to bring that about. And I'm going to close with this beautiful quote from the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done as it is in heaven. Would you repeat that with me? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done as it is in heaven. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Stay strong and let us bring forth heaven on earth. Thank you all. God bless us all.